There we go.
Now it's really a good morning. All right. All right, Wendy Ong is, of course, a multi-hyphenated music executive and one of the few who's able to successfully break artists to every corner or end of the earth. As a music executive at Rock Nation, to RCA, to Capitol Records, to now Tap Music, she represents a really diverse array of artists from Lana Del Rey, to CL, to Ellie Goulding, to my personal favorite, Dermot Kennedy, if you're feeling emotional. So please, again, re-welcome Wendy Ong.
Thanks, Bing.
Andreea, Gleeson and I, who is CEO of TuneCore, of course, have never met, but I have a very soft spot for her and TuneCore because they democratize both the creation and distribution of music, particularly for independent artists. Most recently, they actually released a new program or service known as Unlimited, where any artist can actually monetize, which we're also really excited about. She also is a fierce advocate for women and gender equality in the industry. She created the study Be the Change, which, hilariously, I've actually seen, and I didn't even know you were behind, so amazing. Your work precedes you, as it were. That focuses on women in music, and she's also a U.S. ambassador for Key Change. Welcome, Andreea. And last but, of course, certainly not least, is Edward Liu, who you heard, of course, is Managing Director of Live Nation China. Live Nation, as we all know, is the world's leading live events company that owns, candidly, everything. A-list celebrities, sports galas, the list goes on and on. I think a piece that I was particularly moved by is we all know that the live events business was shattered because of the pandemic. But in the face of that, Edward and his team actually successfully engaged local market touring by deploying more than 250 concerts last year alone. So welcome, Edward, and well done on that. You all can applaud for Edward as well.
Thank you.
Let's begin with the future, as it were, and that is, of course, Wendy Ong. Are there genres or markets where Asia-based talent you feel resonate more?
So right before I answer that, I am going to be glued to my phone because I'm not a great public speaker and I want to get my facts straight because it's an important topic. So I apologize in advance. I think it's important to clarify Asian talent, whether it's Asia-based or Asian by representation. Because I do think that Asian artists are finding, further audiences more so than ever before because of social media and streaming. And, I think that the past few years, it's definitely brought an onslaught of recognition for Asian artists in Western music specifically. I think that more Asian artists are embracing their identities and they're weaving them into their music and showing the next generation that it is possible for people that look like them to be successful. I mean, for me as an Asian woman, that is a very important factor in this conversation. Growing up, I didn't have that many Asian female artists that I was able to look to. There was definitely more so at that point. There was the resurgence of Canto pop back then, and obviously today we see a lot of that in K-pop. One thing that is interesting is I think that Asian-based artists have always had a stronghold in their home countries and more accessible to the areas around them, like Southeast Asia, and artists are. If you're from Singapore, from Thailand, you will find more support and in the countries surrounding you in the region. I also think that in the U.S. specifically, the U.S. market has become more receptive to diverse talents, and I think that perhaps as a backlash to the xenophobia of this era. If there's any silver lining to the onslaught of anti-Asian rhetoric, I think it's brought the broader Asian American community together like never before. And thanks to Asian advocacy groups like Gold House that Bing started. So thank you, Bing, for that. Genre-wise, I think that the electronic genre has always had a wide Asian audience, especially in the US, and it's pretty common practice for mainstream DJs to sample Asian sounds and cultures. An amazing example is MIA. Without MIA, there would be no Diplo. I think a lot of people know that. She gave him his start. Fortunately, it's not just limited to cultural appropriation. There's also a push to create more diverse lineups now, such as Ju and Peggy Gou and Toki Monster. And then on the other spectrum, where groups like Japanese breakfast and Mitski, Rina Sawayama, Griff, and Biba Doobie. I think that, it's very exciting for me to see that they're doing really, really well and I haven't even been able to gloss over artists like Olivia Rodrigo or Bruno Mars or Bella Poarch, those who have Asian heritage in their identities and are embracing it more than ever. So, and streaming, obviously, which I know that Andreea will touch on more, I think that's lifted up a lot of artists in this region specifically, like Indonesia and Philippines. I think that has given them, for example, that Sean talked about yesterday at 88 Rising, like whether it's Nicki or Rich Brian, like that streaming has definitely been the common leveler for a lot of artists in this region.
Yeah, it's such a rich tapestry of thought. I especially love how you articulate certain genres like electronics that sort of translate really well and are just implicitly multicultural as well. Yeah. Electronic, as you know, is created by Black Americans in Detroit, which most people think it was Europeans, but actually wasn't. It was exported. Not to be pro-America. We've had enough of that. But the second piece I really like that I want to go to Edward next on is micro-communities. I think there's something counterintuitive of, in order to actually be mainstream global, you actually have to start very specifically in niche first. Yeah. And niche can be codified by the country you're from, the genre you're in, your identity, and so forth. So Edward, I'm curious for you, the big example for global export that of course is always raised is K-pop, K-drama, and so forth. And all love and of course in respect to what Korea has been able to successfully engineer over the past few decades. I'm curious, when you look at other countries, particularly China, the largest, are there similarities or differences in how one thinks about exporting sort of Asian sensibilities worldwide?
So yeah, well, for the K-pop phenomenon, everyone is trying to decode this phenomenon. So it's a joint effort by lots of artists, basically the whole Korean entertainment industry, and also even the Korean government. Yeah. So it involves all the aspects from the initial casting, from the training, from their melodies, the other choreography. But when it comes down to the touring, I think they were also the pioneer to challenge the older touring models in Asia. What I mean by that, because I'm a touring guy, so I was speaking to that. Because what I mean by that is around 10 years ago, all the Asian artists, they tend to only work with the local show designer, right? There were only a handful of show designers, show designers based in Hong Kong, in Taiwan. They are working on all the arena shows for the Chinese artists. But then K-pop, a band, a big band, they already wow the Asian fans with their international A-level show production. And also, in China, so artists tend to only, arena shows only happen on Saturday. Usually the way they travel is the artist team flying on Thursday, they will do the adjustment and the rehearsal on Friday, show on Saturday, and fly back on Sunday, right? So K-pop was also the first to hit multiple markets in the same run. So it's they will play a show in Shanghai on Friday and the show in Guangzhou on Sunday. It sounds simple, right? But again, it's with the size of the tour or the complexity of their production, it requires a very well coordinated, logistic plan. So no, I think and then the cost that they save on the travel can be allocated more to the show design. Which keep growing their fan base, show after show, tour after tour, and also prepare them when they are ready to tour outside of China. Because the way the Western artists tour is very different than Asian artists. So I think there's something we can learn from. Yeah, is not just copy paste their tour models, because it's all the artists or all the market are unique and very different. But we can learn the concept, which is trying to be more creative in terms of the tour planning. With the resource you have, maybe it's only a 3-arena tour. With very limited tour design budget. But how do you utilize it with the resource you have to deliver a better experience to the fans?
Understood. Something that, to blend both Edward and Wendy's thought that everyone, of course, touches on is the rise of digital, and it's now long sort of overdue democratization of consumption of media. As we all know, YouTube and Spotify, of course, are the most consumed music platforms in the world. The former, thank you for sponsoring All That Matters, by the way. YouTube Music, we love you. The former especially true for anyone who's under the age of 42, which of course is half the population now at least. TuneCore is of course not only an essential and foundational platform, but also just a pinnacle, I think, of the music industry. I'm curious, Andreea, both at TuneCore, and then you might, well, I guess you wouldn't get fired because you're the chief, but outside of TuneCore as well, what are the most essential services and platforms for artists who especially want to scale worldwide?
Yeah, you know, when I first joined TuneCore, the thing that struck me the most that was so special is that you have artists that are sitting all over the world that can get their music to listeners all over the world. And there's something really special about that. And there's something that's happened over the last few years that has exponentially really delivered on making that possible, which is the rise of streaming, which makes listenership more accessible. And then you have social media and discovery on social media. And that has created a way for the artists to connect directly with the fans. And those two things together has really created like a true leveling of the playing field. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you think about how TikTok works, you have, you put a video out and it shows it to a group of users. And if it's resonating with the people that are viewing it, it will show it to more and more and more users. And this is how YouTube Shorts, Reels, it's designed to actually get content in front of the appropriate audience that could resonate with it. And so what then happens is a listener will find something and it's like they've unearthed this special gem. And then they'll go look for it on Spotify. And they'll be like, oh, what else does this artist have? And then they'll go to their Instagram and they'll be like, am I into what they're about? And what's really separated those viral acts versus the ones that really have like a career and actually make a go of it is when they have been at it and working and they have a back catalog sitting there and they have a message and they're a real artist. It's not just like a twerking song that went viral and had its moment and then went away. It's like real artistry. And it's, so definitely like the tools, like to answer your question, it's about experimenting and leaning into the tools. And I talk to so many artists that at first are like, I don't know about TikTok, this isn't for me. But, their manager will be like, you have to do 2 TikToks a week,
That's the label.
And so they're doing it, and then they start to find their groove with it, and not everyone has to do like a dance, but, you've got to get out there and experiment. And so what we did at TuneCore is we were seeing this happen where essentially a song will go viral and then artists are rushing to get the song up. And so we built a service with social platforms where you actually can get the music into the music libraries of social media as a pre-step to distribution to essentially test pilot. Often the songs that are a demo that isn't released yet are the ones that go viral is what we were seeing happen regularly. And so now you can do that and then you can quickly release it to all the other platforms. And so really those two things have just been really essential is, utilizing streaming, getting content out, releasing constantly. If you think about it, social and streaming are very similar because the algorithms reward constant creation. And so putting music out on a regular basis, you create another opportunity to engage with fans and then you animate it. You tease it out, like, should I release this next? And you make your fans a part of the process. So, and then you celebrate when you pass those milestones. And so those two things have been really essential.
I mean, I agree with that, Andreea, but, I don't think you were here yesterday when I spoke in the morning. Like, I think that the danger here is becoming quality over quantity. The constant churning out of content, the high frequency. I mean, it is taking creativity away from the artist, frankly. I feel quite strongly about that. And I think that's why for Asian artists to find success, whatever that means, right? Success in China, success in Asia, success in America, success in the UK. I think a lot of that, it's also down to, it's important for the artists to hone their sound and their message and to have the team around them that can help them figure out who they are and what they want to say. And sometimes the amount of content out there is debilitating for the artist to figure all that out, especially when they're online 24/7.
Do you know, both of you are actually inspiring a new question, and that is the elephant in the room of all these streaming platforms and so forth have democratized access for more musicians. The problem is who is actually going to be a great musician versus just a good musician, and also candidly, does it matter? And so the sort of prevailing sort of, I guess, conversation that we've seen in all the matters in the past few days was one, it does begin with true artistry. The question then becomes, what even is true artistry? Because one could argue, if you ask, I mean, Bella Poarch thrived online, right? And we used to have this saying in YouTube, quality is viewership. If people are watching, it is quality because it has their attention, and time is the most essential asset. Now, the thing they may be watching may be some terrible, non-discernible talent vlogger, but that's okay, right? And so I guess the first note that we've learned so far, and I'm curious how people feel, is that true artistry is actually something that people have never seen before and is also validated by traditional systems as talented. And that seems a little bit backwards and antithetical to the value of the internet, but the reason this is important is at a macro level, as we all know, because of this overabundance of platforms, creators, and so forth, there's now a contractive sort of response in the market where people only want great curated artists who are traditionally trained, who are validated by Billboard, and so forth. Right. Curious how people feel on that. The second is, I've said this now twice at this conference, but we conducted this study when we were at YouTube to figure out why indie label or indie musicians on the platform were not as famous as Beyonce and Jay-Z. And the short outside of certain talent, because we did also have talent in the form of Lindsey Sterling and others. Justin Bieber, of course, came from YouTube. But the other side was there's no fourth wall on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And having a fourth wall where you are inaccessible as an artist, and not only inaccessible, but only occupy large spaces, the Super Bowl in the United States, large billboards and so forth, actually puts a premium on you because you're scarcer and therefore seen as more luxurious. So that's seen as sort of a second quality. My question to all of you is, how do we feel about those two so far, of what distinguishes great artists who are really going to stand the test of time from, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, TikTok-only artists or digital-only artists, because there is candidly a difference, right? And I say this as the internet person. And then second, are there other qualities, whether on event touring, on platforms, or in services and agencies, that you're seeing that further distinguish great from good artists?
I mean, I think this is a struggle these days, right? Whether it's I would say more so on the label side, because everyone is chasing that lightning in a bottle, that viral moment, and when they find it, you know, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, like, there is a rush to market before they can really figure out, the artist can figure out what they need to do, what is their sound. Going back to that again, what differentiates you? Even if you're Asian, is that enough? Like, just because you're Asian, is that enough to to have success outside of your own market?
No.
Right.
Yeah, but this is where, again, I'm not saying it shouldn't have quality, but there's a lot of artists who have great quality, they just didn't have the opportunity to get the audience.
Yes.
And so this is what I'm seeing. So speaking of the lightning in the bottle, we had that situation happen on TuneCore earlier this year. We had Lauren Spencer-Smith. She put out her song, Fingers Crossed, as just a teaser on TikTok in November. She put it out first Friday of the new year, and it shot up straight to the top. She's sitting next to Adele on the UK charts, and then she ended up signing with Island and Republic. And so it happens. It's just about, I think that these platforms unearth this talent that's there, that's just giving it its moment, and if the music's good, it's resonating.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that you shouldn't have quality. It's just changed the release strategy. So where you would have a couple EPs a year, now you're breaking it up in a single, release it one at a time, giving it its own moment. Give it its own pre-saved link, tease it out, and then you wrap it up in an EP. It's just changed the release strategy. It doesn't mean it's less quality. Though there is...
I think that's debatable.
But again, and not all, and I will say, a lot of TuneCore artists don't have the great quality. They're working at it. Sure. But you know, there's a lot that do have the quality.
I agree on the access challenge too. Like it ultimately is it's a marketing funnel, right? I mean, I'll go to like television and streaming. A lot of the streaming platforms, whether they're Netflix or otherwise, get a lot of flack in the industry of saying, well, their creative just isn't as good as what a traditional network or studio has. If you look at the renewal rates from series 1 to season 2, the reality is 90+% of shows don't get renewed for a second season. And by the way, Netflix's numbers are consistent. Right. So it's just pronounced, I think, because of just press awareness and so forth. But to this point, it's different tools, but it's all the same rules, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and also like when it comes to the, tour and concerts, like, it's easy to tell, yes, like how many hard tickets the artist can move, right? So like, it happens in China a lot, some like, social media sensation, like, they got lots of commercial deals, like endorsements deals, but they don't sell tickets, right? But like the true artists, like, the music, like, for some like old generation artists, they have been quiet for the whole year. They don't like, create lots of, they're very selective in terms of like, promotional content on the social medias, but they can always sell out like arenas, like multiple tours. Yeah.
I think that is such a great point, Edward, because not all artists translate from online to real life. Yes. And
100%.
Personally, like obviously, like I'm old school, but I love going to shows, and I love it when the artist has stage presence and they're able to pull off a great show. Yeah. A lot of artists that are there's a lot of song-based success, not artist-based success at this point, I think.
Wait, let's talk about that. So maybe we'll start with Edward because, as we all know, most artists make a disproportionate majority of their income from both streaming as well as, of course, live events, specifically concerts. When you look at, let's say, the next 5 years, what is the right revenue mix for the most successful artists? What percentage comes from where? This is an opportunity to plug your companies, by the way.
Right, it is. Like, just I mentioned, like in China, actually, like, lots of they got, like, this is such a big market, they got lots of like commercial deals, endorsements deals, right? So it's actually like the touring is only a small part of the revenue for lots of artists, right? So this is why we always trying to like just persuade them to get on the road to play more shows, because then they can last longer in their like career. And also like as a Live Nation, we create lots of like platforms for them to like build up their career within, and also like go outside of China. Like the Wins to Watch platform, the showcase we did yesterday in a thing like near the hotel. So this is the platform for young emerging artists, which we they can their music we will promote them through like Live Nation networks. We will, trying to work with established local artists. We gave them all those like professional tour planning, and also like we are trying to like bring like more Chinese artists to the festivals like in Europe, in UK. Like we just had Chinese DJs Chase both playing at Creamfields UK last month. We had like Chinese rappers play at Rolling Loud Miami like before COVID, right? So those kind of things we are trying to like just show them like how they can grow like touring into like a bigger stage.
Andreea, Wendy, do you have thoughts on this one?
On the revenue mix?
Yes.
So I represent digital music sales, so I don't know as much about the live space in full disclosure, but you're right now streaming makes the biggest part of your revenue for digital music distribution, but you should make sure that you're also like keeping account of your publishing. And this is where, at least on the DIY level, like artists they're leaving money on the table, they're not collecting. I can't tell you, several times a year we like send out emails like, there's money sitting here for you, you just need to register your song. So publishing, and that whole area is getting more modernized, which is really good, which means we're gonna get faster, more complete collection. So yeah.
Wendy, just to change questions a little bit, when you think about artists leveraging platforms and or scaling worldwide, what are the biggest pitfalls you think that they make?
Let's go back to the basics, right? I think that if you want success out of your home market, you need to put in the time in the markets that you are trying to break. Let's just go back to the US, right? Because like all too often you get artists coming to the US, like, oh, I managed to get a performance on Fallon. Come in with 30 strong travel party, which costs a huge amount of money, and they do the one TV show, and what happens? Nothing. That is not how you go about, breaking outside of your home turf. And I think that is a big issue with artists coming from this region, whether it's K-pop or C-pop or J-pop. Like it doesn't matter, frankly. If you're gonna focus on trying to make headway in the UK, you need to spend time in the UK, and you can't do it with a ridiculous travel party because the budget is finite. Whether you're working with a label partner or you're financing it out of your own pocket, you have to be smart about how you're going about what is your strategy? And that's why it's all the more important to have a strong artist, your team behind you needs to help you with that strategy, with the budgeting, with not just chasing these moments, but if you are chasing these moments, but what is the back end of this,
Last question, last 3 minutes, because I know we can talk, of course, all afternoon. What is this will be like choosing between children, but what is your greatest prediction / where you would put your money if you weren't in your current role within the music industry? And we can begin with whoever is brave.
Ask the question again.
What are you most excited for in the music industry that you think has the most promise, and promise will be codified likely by revenue?
I mean, we don't know yet. I think we're at a really interesting impasse where, like,
Are you trying
Web3,
to get
like,
us to
what's
say
Web3? I don't know.
God.
Like,
I have very mixed feelings on Web3.
in like a
DAOs
meaningful
are
way.
farce, NFTs are useless.
I do think, though, honestly, like, I have a lot of opinions on all these things, but I do think that there is a lot of promise in what Web3 offers. And, what we know now will be completely transformed in 5 years' time. So I think like that's why Jasper has added Web3 to this conference, right? I don't know what it's gonna look like in a couple of years' time. How strong will YouTube and Spotify and TikTok be the strongest platforms out there? I don't know. Like, it remains to be seen. Like, I think it's all about building your core community, and that is what Web3 can offer.
YouTube's NFT effort will ensure that they are. And I think music, of course, more than any other creative category, actually should over-index in Web3, whether it's because of rights issues or otherwise. Do y'all have any other thoughts before we break? Greatest predictions outside of Web3. You're right. That was the obvious one. That was the easy one. Yeah. What else? I'm asking you to do your day job for free, I know. Or what is the most overhyped thing that people are focusing too much on?
Also Web3, no.
All new industries are the victim and villain. We didn't prepare for this one, so this is why they're not ready for it.
I'll say I think that just more micro communities are going to continue to grow. I think that it's really cool that like an artist may not have good streaming revenue, but they can go on Twitch and like find a really avid community that like they can make money and like live off that, and that's amazing. And I think that there's going to be more of that. Yeah.
Great. Well, Wendy, Andreea, Edward, thank you so much for showing us why music matters. Thank you so much, Jasper. Thank you so much, YouTube Music. Who else? Thank you so much, Universal Music Group. I'm not getting paid to thank all our friends, but thank you all so much again.